So the next story we're going to look at, this one, again, was an interesting story for me on two levels. It's called the Forbidden Plateau, and it is a plateau in British Columbia. And so I was reading about it, and this is the legend around this plateau. There was a tribe called the Comox, and they were getting raided by other tribes along the coast. And what they would do is they would take their women and children, and they would hide them up on the plateau, and then they would fight off or evade the raiders. And then when the battle or the stealth action was done, they would go up to the plateau and bring their wife and children down. But once there was a raid from a rival tribe, and they put them up there, and when they went back up there, everyone was gone. Women, the kids were completely gone. They started trying to figure out, did we get flanked? Did somebody come and kill them? What happened? And they found the snow was red. It was red lichen covering the snow and the rocks and stuff like that. And the tribe members were like, this place is cursed. Our women and children have been taken by some evil spirit, and they're gone forever. So the Forbidden Plateau has been explored by paranormal investigators. It's kind of like this local legend. It's like a Roanoke type thing where people just disappeared. I came across, and that wasn't the only disappearance. There's also weird Bigfoot sightings and stuff like that up there as well. So it's just kind of known as this area. I came across this honestly adorable website. It's on LiveJournal from user Caffeine Kitty, caffeine like the drink. And I'm assuming it's a girl. She really goes into detail. She's actually a huge supernatural fan. And she's like, I'm going to do this investigation. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to take pictures. And it's actually really adorable. And I think that's how a lot of people get started into this type of stuff. I obviously watched a lot of Supernatural. I haven't watched really past season 7, but a lot of Buffy and Angel and X-Files and Kolchak the Night Stalker and all that stuff. And I think media is a good way to get it. It's kind of a foothold. Twin Peaks, it's kind of like a foothold into this world because it's just these super dynamic stories. So it's adorable that, she's like, I'm going on an investigation. This is what the Winchesters would do. So I think that's amazing. And she does go up there and she's talking about the drive and she's taking pictures and all that stuff and find some creepy cabins and things like that. Here's the thing. And this is why the first part of the story, when I read that, I was like, that's creepy. I always like legends of, we've talked about portals and people disappearing. And hate, because I'm scared of them. But here's the thing. It's all made up. It's completely made up. Now, you can go, well, Jason, there could be a portal up there. No, I'm telling you, it's made up. So what happened was in 1967, Clinton S. Wood talked about the Forbidden Plateau. So in 1925, he was working for the city of Courtenay in the area. So in 1925, he had to go up to the plateau to do some sort of zoning thing for the water source for expanding the city. So he was looking for a water source. This is what he says in this book in 1967, direct quote. So entranced was I with the great beauty of this subalpine country that I made up my mind that the general public should be made aware of its great potential as a drawing card for the district and as a great recreational district for all, especially if it could be made a bit more accessible. I was secretary of the Board of Trade and had the idea that a bit of mystery added to the obvious attractions would help publicize it. I wrote a small article to the Comics Argus, and the idea was seized upon by Ben Hughes, the editor, who wrote an article to the Vancouver Daily Province using the word plateau. To this was added the word forbidden by Cecil Scott, and thus originated the name Forbidden Plateau. And you're like, okay, well that's how they came up with the name, doesn't prove... Here's another quote. This was Trevor Davis. He was the founding member of the Comox District Mountaineering Club. And he said in 1983 in a book, Ben Hughes was the first publisher of the Comics Argus, which is the local newspaper, a wonderful man at making up stories. So he invented the story of the Indian War, when the Indians took all their wives up there and there were some big hairy creatures of some sort and the women disappeared, and the Indians have refused to go there ever since. That is how the name Forbidden Plateau and the legend started. But there is absolutely no truth in these stories as far as the local Indians are concerned, but they became legends and Ben printed articles in the Comics Argus and away they went. And now they are history. Obviously, the Indians didn't go in there because all their food was on the beach, and they weren't stupid like we are. They didn't go mountain climbing for no reason. I don't think this necessarily proves that everything's a hoax, but it goes to show this stuff was printed back at the turn of the century, like in the 20s, in the 1920s. And people just made it up. They just made it up. They're like, oh, it's a beautiful place. How do we get people up there? I tell them it's haunted. I would have never known about the Forbidden Plateau. It never would have ended up on this podcast. That young girl never would have went up there. Paranormal sites never would have talked about it. It would have just been another pretty place that families go picnicking every once in a while. But because of these stories, with good, the people had good intentions. They weren't, oh, and then I bought up a bunch of land and I built a haunted house up there. They're just like, this is such a beautiful place. How do we get people up here? Tell them Bigfoot's here. It makes you, again, question how many other times this happens. Not necessarily always with good purposes. Somebody may have a house and they figure they can, rent it out if they say it's haunted and stuff like that. But I think I'm happy that I was able to find this basically rebuttal to that original legend, because at first I was looking at that original legend, looking for more information, and I discovered this story, and I think it makes it even more fascinating to know that it was a good-hearted lie, a lie nonetheless, and you could be angry with them for doing that, but it was a good-hearted lie to get people to explore something they may never have otherwise heard of. And when you're reading other stories about mystical places or haunted houses or forbidden plateaus, I'd like you to keep this in mind, too. But yeah, fascinating. And these two people came forward and said, yeah, I totally made it up. So, that young girl who went up there, she didn't get tricked. She didn't get fooled. She spent a really fun day doing what her heroes do. Solving a mystery. Exploring something she never would have gone to otherwise. So again, it's a lie, but I think there was good intentions behind it. And those good intentions are still playing out today. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.